You ever get the feeling that the way we talk about science is just kind of broken? I mean, in a world flooded with misinformation, we're all looking to science for some solid ground, for reliable facts. But what happens when that trust starts to crumble? Well, today, we're going to dive into Hazek Chang's book, Realism for Realistic People. And trust me, it offers a totally radical and honestly really refreshing new way to think about science, knowledge, and even truth itself. So let's get right into it.
Yeah, this quote from Chang just absolutely hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? He's arguing that we've set up this impossible ideal for science. We act like it's supposed to be this giver of absolute, unquestionable truth. And when it inevitably falls short of that because, hey, science is a human process, it creates a massive problem. You get people thinking, well, if evolution isn't 100% proven, then it's just a theory. Or if some scientists disagree on climate change, it's just an opinion. This kind of all or nothing thinking is so damaging to our trust in what is, honestly, our best tool for figuring out the world. So that leaves us with a huge question, right? If science isn't some kind of vending machine for final, perfect truths, then what is it? What are scientists actually doing all day? This is the core puzzle that Chang is trying to solve, and believe me, the answer he comes up with might just change how you see knowledge forever.
All right, so first things first, let's really break down the problem with our whole traditional idea of scientific truth, with a capital T. So the standard philosophy here is something called scientific realism. And basically, it's the belief that science is slowly but surely uncovering one single ultimate reality, something that exists completely separate from us. It's this vision of science on a grand mission, to find the final complete instruction manual for how the universe works.
But you see, this viewpoint creates some really serious problems. It forces us into this false choice. Either a theory is the absolute capital T truth, or it's just another opinion. And that way of thinking, it encourages dogmatism. People who dissent aren't seen as part of a healthy scientific debate. They just get dismissed as being misguided or, malicious. Science starts to look like a collection of sacred truths, which is so dangerous because, as the great Carl Sagan said, in science, there are no sacred truths.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? Well, Chang proposes a really radical shift in thinking. He says, let's stop thinking about knowledge as a thing we have, like a possession, and let's start thinking about it as something we do.
And this is where we get this incredibly powerful metaphor. See, traditional philosophy is all about knowing that, facts, information you'd find in a textbook. Chang, borrowing an idea from the philosopher Gilbert Ryle, calls this museum possession knowledge. It's important, sure, but it's kind of static, just sitting there on display. What he wants us to focus on is knowing how, knowledge as an ability. This is workshop possession knowledge. It's not just about knowing that water is H2O, it's about knowing how to purify it, how to use it in a chemical reaction, how to actually measure its properties.
And this is what knowing how looks like in the real world. I mean, just think about it for a second. What is scientific knowledge, really? It's the ability to predict the weather. It's synthesizing a new life-saving drug. It's sequencing a strand of DNA. It's creating and operating something as complex as the entire internet. These things aren't just, applications of knowledge. They are the knowledge. It's active, it's powerful, and it's literally world-changing. So this shift in focus gives us a completely new picture of what science is. It's a picture where the fundamental unit isn't the theory, but the activity itself.
Okay, so Chang gives a name to these fundamental building blocks of science. He calls them epistemic activities. The easiest way to think about them is like little programs of action. They're a set of operations, some mental, some physical, that are all aimed at getting a knowledge-related goal. It's not just about believing stuff, it's about the whole messy, active process. The measuring, the testing, the building, the calculating. Now, these individual activities, they don't exist in a vacuum. They combine into what Chang calls a system of practice. And this is a fantastic example from the chemical revolution back in the 18th century. Antoine Lavoisier didn't just come up with a new theory out of thin air. No, he created a whole new system for doing chemistry. It was this coherent cycle of making reactions, collecting the gases, analyzing the substances, and, crucially, measuring and tracking everything by weight. It was this brand new way of doing that led to a brand new way of knowing. Okay, but wait a second. If science is an activity, how do we know if it's a good one? If we're not using absolute truth as our yardstick, then what are we using? This brings us to probably the most important concept in the book,
operational coherence. So, what is operational coherence? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's when all the different parts of an activity, the ideas, the tools you're using, the physical actions you're taking, when they all work together harmoniously. Just think of a perfectly oiled machine or a championship basketball team running a play. Every single piece knows its role, and everything just clicks together to achieve the goal. And really, in short, it's just about doing what makes sense to do. The crucial point here is that this is a practical, real-world way to measure success. It's not about chasing some abstract, philosophical truth. Think about building a stable bridge. The whole set of actions for doing that has super high operational coherence. The math, the materials, the building techniques, they all fit together to achieve one goal, a bridge that doesn't fall down. It just works.
Sometimes the best way to really get a concept is to look at its opposite. And a lack of coherence is a feeling we all know. It's that moment you stumble on a step you didn't see coming. It's that super awkward, tangled handshake where nobody's sure what to do, or trying to light a match and the matchstick just snaps in your hand. It's when the pieces of an action just do not fit together. Good science, then, is the exact opposite of that. It's a smooth, well-coordinated, and effective performance.
Okay, so what does all this mean for the big picture, for the philosophy of it all? Well, it lets us build a whole new kind of realism, one that's, actually realistic.
See, traditional realism is kind of a spectator's philosophy. It's about sitting in the stands and believing that our theories perfectly match some ultimate reality out there. But Chang proposes something he calls activist realism. And this is not a passive belief. It's an active commitment. It's about being an actor on the stage, not a spectator in the audience. It's a promise to constantly do everything we can to improve our knowledge, to make our activities more coherent, more effective.
And I just love this quote. It sums it all up. Activist realism isn't about standing on a mountain and claiming we have the final truth. It's a complete opposite. It's an instruction, a command, really, to never be satisfied with what we currently think we know. It's about always pushing, always testing, always improving. It puts progress and action right at the very heart of what science is.
All right, so why does any of this philosophy actually matter in the real world? Let's bring it full circle and connect it back to those problems we talked about right at the beginning.
Well, this realism for realistic people gives us a much, much healthier way to think and talk about science. It lets us accept that science isn't some dusty collection of fixed dogmas. It's a living process of continual inquiry, debate, and improvement. It makes space for uncertainty and disagreement without having to throw the whole enterprise out the window. It lets science be what it actually is, a messy, dynamic, and unbelievably powerful human activity. And that leaves us with one last kind of challenging thought. If Chang is right about all this, if knowledge isn't just about what you believe, but about what you can actually do, well, that changes everything, doesn't it? The question suddenly becomes very personal. So I'll leave you with this. What are you actively trying to know?